Hi, in today's lesson I'm going to show you how to practice one-step sparring. One-step sparring is another form of pre-arranged sparring like three-step sparring and two-step sparring, which I've shown you in previous videos. But as its name suggests, only one attack is allowed. It's one step. You step forward with an attack and the defender can either dodge or block, and then does one counterattack. But only one counterattack is allowed. I've often seen one-step sparring being done with more than one counterattack, and that's not the correct way to do it. Just one counterattack. Now, both the attacker and the defender should start from a parallel ready stance position. So here's the procedure for doing one-step sparring. Both the attacker and defender go to attention stance and bow to each other. On the command of one-step sparring, ready, or in Korean, Ilbo Matsogi, 준비, the attacker will move their right foot to parallel ready stance and the defender their left foot to parallel ready stance. Both the attacker and defender shout yup as a ready signal. Yup, yup. And at the command of commence, or 시작, both the attacker and defender take appropriate action to perform one-step sparring. On the command of stop, or 그만, both the attacker and defender return to ready stance respectively. Then they go to attention stance and bow. So you're allowed one step for the initial attack. So normally you just step straight into the stance and do the attack. But sometimes you want to adjust your position, and especially with kicks, so you may want to step across, for example, and do the kick, especially with turning kicks, so that's allowed. When defending, normally you go straight into the stance and block, but you're allowed to take a step and then adjust the stance after, especially in the case of rear foot stance. It's quite common to do it that way. Having done the block, you may want to adjust your position, for example, turn and get a different angle. That's allowed. You're allowed to take another step for the counter-attack. Here are a few tips to help you with one-step sparring. You don't need to measure up with one-step sparring. You can judge it by eye. Normally, you're at a distance of about one walking stance. Okay? A lot of techniques would be done with a walking stance, but not always. But leave it to the attacker to decide the distance, because the attacker may want to jump in, for example, from here, jump in to do a neck stance, for example, or to stand very close to do a close range attack. And when they do close range attacks, usually it's best to dodge rather than try to block. But allow the attacker to decide the distance. Now, when you're blocking, make sure that the block is appropriate to deal with the attack. For example, if he does a knife hand strike and I try to block with a reverse knife hand, I'm just helping the strike along, okay? So if I didn't move back enough, he would actually be hitting me and I'll be helping it along. You need to counteract it by going against the attack, yeah? So usually the block is in the direction against the attack, okay? And also use the appropriate tool. One common mistake I often see is people do a block with a knife hand or reverse knife hand, and yet they block with a forearm. So for example, if he does a strike and I form a knife hand, but I block with a forearm, that doesn't make sense. If you form a knife hand, use it. If you form a reverse knife hand, use it. If you want to use the forearm, then just keep the fist closed. Yeah? No need to form the knife hand. Okay? And when you do block, block in the region near the wrist. So if he attacks, it's no good me blocking near the elbow. Okay, so here, okay, it's going to be too much weight here. There, near the wrist. In the example here in the outer forearm or in a forearm. For example, if he punches, I do a block. I need to knock his arm out of the way, so it needs to have power so that I can move in and attack. Okay, if you leave the arm there, okay, there, and then you move in, he could use it again to attack you. Yeah, so sometimes you really need to put power to knock the attack away. So blocking is not just about stopping an attack from hitting you. It's also to expose a target for you to counterattack. Okay. Now, sometimes when you counterattack, you're too far away. So say he does a punch and I go back and block and I try a punch, you can see the distance is so far. So there are ways that you can adjust the distance. One is to do a foot shift. Another way is to change the stance. So maybe I can block with the L stance and then change to walking stance. That way I go forward. And this is why rear foot stance is very useful, because rear foot stance allows you to move back only slightly, yet be away from the attack. So if you punch, I block in rear foot stance, and now I can move in a lot to go into, say, walking stance or low stance and gain a lot of distance. Another way of gaining distance is to jump in, okay? But normally you would do that when you're quite far away. Say you did a dodge, so I dodge and then I jump in, okay? If you're not having to move in a lot, then foot shifting would be better. Just a word about dodging. If you are going to dodge, don't do it in a sloppy way. So you punch and I just dodge like that. My arms are just dangling. It looks very untidy. Okay? So try to block with a guarding block like that as you dodge and then counter attack. Okay? If you're kicking, say you do a punch, okay, and I dodge and I kick. Again, don't leave your arms dangling and be sloppy. Try to finish with a guarding block, for example. So I'll dodge, kick, and guarding block, or knife and guarding block, or El ready stance, something like that. But don't just leave it very sloppy, yeah? So form a guarding block normally. Okay, so these are hints and tips that you can use. Try to get your counterattack really close to the opponent, but it depends how proficient you are. If you're a beginner, it's okay to be far away. So if he does a punch, there, I only go this close. But if you're an advanced student, you can get much closer there, okay? So one thing I do with my students is I practice trying to get those counterattacks close by getting an opponent to stand there as a target, and you just practice doing counterattacks, getting really close to the opponent without hitting them, like that. Okay. Okay. Dangerously close, but not actually hitting them. But you have to be very proficient for that, so don't try that at home if you're a beginner. Okay, so here are some examples of one-step sparring. One-step sparring can be practiced at all levels, but obviously if you're a beginner, you'd stick to the more basic attacks and defensive movements. And one-step sparring allows you to practice one of the philosophies of Taekwondo, which is to eliminate the threat of the opponent in one decisive blow. So bear that in mind when you're practicing. When you do your counter-attack, do it with power, aim for a vital spot, and use the correct attacking tool. And that way you'll be able to eliminate the threat of the opponent in that one decisive blow. So thanks for watching this video, hope you enjoyed it, and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, and I hope to see you next lesson. Goodbye.